Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I see that we have already a full set of participants. I would like us to get started. I think we are still having some issues having Michael connecting. I hope that we can solve those through the chat. Or Michael, I would ask you to log off and log in again. So hopefully you can join us soon. Welcome everyone to this first event under CLASP Climate-Wise Cooling. Earlier this month, CLASP launched a communications campaign to discuss the climate impacts of growing global cooling demand and to foster an online dialogue with practitioners in the climate and cooling space. Over the past weeks, we have introduced the cooling channel, the cooling challenge, and how critical it is to provide sustainable cooling access to millions of people worldwide in order to reduce the risks and threats to their health and safety and their food supply. We have been highlighting contributions from stakeholders across various sectors to enhance access to sustainable cooling. And today, we want to explore with this panel the role of policies as a key cost-effective tool to address climate impacts of growing cooling demand and to build a path to equitable and sustainable cooling. We are joined today by Patrick Blake from United for Efficiency, Nihar Shah from the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, and Michael Kiza from the East African Center of Excellence for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. We will be discussing the model minimum energy performance standards, or model MEPS, that were developed by United for Efficiency for air conditioners and refrigerators. We will be hearing about the benefits of adopting this approach and how countries can enhance availability of highly efficient technologies and limit inefficient products in markets by adopting these model regulations. Our panelists will provide some initial remarks. We have set aside 10 minutes for each of them. And then we want to have a dialogue, so we will open up for questions from the various participants. Before we begin, I wanted to say a few words about our panelists. Patrick Blake. Good afternoon, Patrick. He has been working at United Nations Environment Program with the Energy and Climate Branch since 2013. He focuses his efforts on the United for Efficiency initiative, which supports countries in the transition to energy efficient lighting, appliances, and equipment. Patrick oversees the development of different policymaker tools and resources under U4E, including the country savings assessments, the model regulation guidelines, and product registration systems. Nihar Shah, good morning, Nihar. He is the founding director of Berkeley Labs Global Cooling Efficiency Program. Since 2014, he has led research supporting the negotiations of the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol and the first study quantifying the potential benefits of energy efficiency improvement in tandem with the refrigerant transition. He has led several key efforts at Berkeley Lab, including research in support of revision of air conditioners standards in China, India, and Brazil, as well as development of the United for Efficiency model regulations for air conditioners. And Michael, good afternoon, Michael. Michael Kiza has over 20 years. Good afternoon. Michael has over 20 years of work experience spanning from industrial processes to capacity building program and policy analysis, formulation and dialogue at national and international levels. Since January 2017, he is the program management expert at the East African Center of Excellence for Renewable Energy and Efficiency, EACRE. His current role involves designing and implementing programs in the areas of policy formulation, capacity building, and investment promotions of renewable energy and energy efficiency. So with that, I would like to welcome our panelists. We will get started. Maybe we can review very quickly some logistics on the next slide. Jenny or Claudia, can we move to the next slide? Thank you. Just so everyone is aware, this webinar is being recorded. You will be receiving an email with a link to the recording following the event. We have a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen so that you can submit your questions during the presentations. And as I mentioned, we will open up for this dialogue at the end of the initial remarks. So Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ana Maria, for the introduction, and thank you for CLASP for hosting this webinar and for including us in the Climate-Wise Cooling campaign. We look forward to this webinar and the discussions also with other speakers from EACRE and LENO. As Ana Maria said, that I'm from United for Efficiency at UN Environment Program. My presentation today will go through on the model regulations, bit of background on how those were developed and how also we're using those in countries and supporting countries in implementation of those. Next slide, please. So I wanted to start out first on the benefits more broadly that are possible for energy efficient and climate friendly cooling products. Under the United for Efficiency initiative, we developed an assessment showing the savings potential countries can achieve through energy efficient products, not only these two focused products that I have here, but also on lighting, motors, and transformers. Here you see the savings opportunity for these two products. So I just wanted to highlight the increasing growth of these products. This assessment is focused on developing and emerging economies. So throughout Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And here we see three different scenarios. One, a business as usual scenario, the gray line, but then also two policy scenarios. And these align with the recommendations that are in the model regulations. So there we see almost a doubling, over a doubling of air conditioners, similarly on air conditioners, but then also the savings opportunities that countries can achieve if they implement minimum energy performance standards. So of course that relates to the electricity savings that you see on the right-hand side. So 558 terawatt hours for air conditioners, 184 for refrigerators. But that also equates to different equivalencies in power stations. So over 250 power stations from air conditioners alone, and over 80 for refrigerators. And then also the climate benefits, but not only that, but also the electricity bill savings that consumers can achieve by implementing minimum energy performance standards. So particularly in the time with the COVID recovery, this allows for very quick savings opportunities for countries to help their consumers. Continuing on, please. And here you see on this slide the status of policies globally. And in some regards, this does show good trends of a lot of policies being implemented, and you see that in green. So a good patchwork of policies in Latin America, in Asia, but not many at the moment in Africa, some progress. But it doesn't tell the whole story in that some of those policies are out of date, they're not enforced, they're not followed, and they're not as stringent to really push or drive the market further. So that's really one of the efforts that we want to encourage countries, even if they do have policies in place, that there are opportunities to update and revise those as the market and technologies advance. And we're working, and other organizations are working with individual countries, but also regional groups of countries to support them. And we'll hear more from Michael Kiza on the work in East and Southern Africa later today. Next slide, please. On the model regulations themselves, as I said, the initiative that I work on, United for Efficiency, focuses on other products as well, including lighting, refrigerators, air conditioners, motors, and transformers. But here you see the two model regulations on air conditioners and refrigerators that we're focusing on today. What this is intended for is to help inform the regulatory authorities and policymakers as a template to start with. It sets a minimum energy efficiency floor to prohibit future sales of inefficient products, but it also makes recommendations for low global warming potential refrigerants. We've looked, and we'll hear more from Nihar, we've looked at different global trends, making these recommendations. Not only what's existing in countries, but what other countries have developed as far as policies, and also as far as where the technology of air conditioners and refrigerators is going, and that's helped inform making the recommendations. And we're working with different groups of countries, as I said, to support the implementation of this, including in Southeast Asia, in East and Southern Africa, but also more broadly than that. It is available in English, in Spanish, Chinese, and also upcoming versions in French and Arabic as well. And you can find those all on the U4E website. Next slide, please. And this effort was really a collaborative effort. The work was funded by the Global Environment Facility and the Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program. It brought together throughout the process a large amount of stakeholders that fed in their inputs as far as the technology and different trends and where policies stand in countries. So that includes different global manufacturers, and you see those presented here, a mix of different companies from Europe, from Asia, and also North America. It also, we worked very closely with Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and Nihar will go more into the technical side of the presentation of the model regulations in his presentation, and also Natural Resource Defense Council. But also a broader group, as you see here, including CLASP, including GIZ, UNDP, IEA as well, and also bringing in the viewpoints and experiences from different regional groupings and country, from government officials from countries. So through that, it provided the input, and then we were able to conclude with the recommendations that we have subsequently put into the U4E model regulations. Next slide, please. Okay, great. And just, so this is my last slide. I just want to highlight the benefits of supporting the adoption of model regulation guidelines. So what we are really trying to do here is to simplify the adoption and implementation of a robust regulation. And through that, to accelerate the process for countries, and also to do it in a harmonized manner. It incorporates, as I said earlier, targets for energy efficiency in tiers that countries can utilize, and also lower global warming potential refrigerants. So to work on both at the same time. Then it also includes recommendations for labeling and for different climate differences from countries. And as I said earlier, it also incorporates experiences from other countries and also trends for where the technology is going. We expect that this will help encourage product innovation and give consumers more choice, and to really push the market further as countries implement policies. The aim here is to also promote harmonization between countries so that we don't see a patchwork, as I presented earlier, of single countries implementing different regulations, that it is done in a consistent and harmonized manner. And we hope the model regulations provides that template to do that. And then also on the market enforcement side, that there are common test procedures referenced and exchange of information and utilizing of, for example, common laboratories between countries. So with that, I believe that's my last slide. And again, just to highlight, it was really a collective effort, including all the speakers and on the call today. And we really want this to be utilized not only by us, but also the different organizations and experts that are participating on the call today and the government officials. So thank you and look forward to the rest of the webinar today.
Thank you, Patrick. And very impressive, the savings that you show at the beginning. Definitely, there are multiple benefits from adopting these model MEPS, not only from the energy savings and greenhouse gas emissions perspective, but also, as you mentioned, opportunities to reduce barriers to trade and, of course, alignment that will facilitate compliance. So I hope that we can discuss a little bit more at the end of the remarks. Moving on, Nihar, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the broader implications of the U4A model MEPS for air conditioners. Good morning, everyone. And my name is Nihar Shah. I work at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and we're a U.S. Department of Energy National Lab. We've been working on energy efficiency for quite a number of years, and we do technical support for the U.S. Department of Energy's appliance standards programs. We also work with Energy Star, and we have a number of different programs around the world. Next slide, please. So one of the things I want to talk about in this webinar is the fact that in order to actually get to a world below 2 degrees C global average temperature rise, you actually need to work both on reducing carbon dioxide emissions, as well as what are called short-lived climate pollutants, or SLCPs. So if you look at the chart, you'll see the red line shows you the business as usual case that Patrick was talking about. And if you control carbon dioxide emissions only, that gets you the blue line. So if you only do work on energy efficiency, you'll have a trajectory that looks like the blue line. If you only control short-lived climate pollutants, and the refrigerants in air conditioners and fridges are part of those, then you'll essentially be hitting the black line. And neither of those on their own would get you to below 2 degrees C. And the reason for that, of course, on the refrigerant side, is you see these refrigerants on the right, which are what I would call the baseline refrigerants. And all of them have a very high global warming potential. So ideally, you'd want to do both things together in some fashion. The Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol is estimated to save about 0.5 degree of global average temperature rise by essentially phasing down these high global warming potential HFC refrigerants. So we also did a study that was referenced earlier in 2015, which showed that energy efficiency improvement in tandem with the refrigerant transition can more than double this savings. And so essentially what we did when we were coming up with these U4A model regulations is we included suggestions or guidelines for requirements on both refrigerant and energy efficiency. Next slide, please. So Patrick again mentioned why we want to do this, and I want to reiterate. The IEA has found that this global air conditioner stock is likely to increase very rapidly, and of course, refrigerator stock is also growing similarly, to about 4.5 billion, which is about a three or a little bit more than a threefold increase from current levels. And you'll see that is driven by trends such as electrification, urbanization, increasing incomes in countries with hot and dry or hot and humid climates, including China, India, and other emerging economies. You'll see the large increases on the left coming from many of those countries. What does that mean for our future? So if you look at the chart on the right, the yellow bar, the yellow-orange bar, essentially shows you the total power input of room air conditioners that were produced in 2017. And you'll see that if you added up the total power input for all that were produced in China, that was essentially 1.5 times the global solar capacity, which is the green bar, added in the same year. Which basically means that while we're taking one step forward with renewable energy, like solar, we're taking 2 steps back by adding this huge demand to the grid. And so it's really important for us to essentially both to manage peak load and to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that I mentioned previously and that Patrick mentioned, to essentially address both energy efficiency and refrigerant transition together. As again, Patrick mentioned, the savings from, and Patrick had a number from up to 2040, I have the number up to 2030 for air conditioners alone. And again, whichever way you slice this, this is a pretty big number, which is about 337 terawatt hours, which is about 154 medium-sized power plants. So that's just, that would be a very large shift if we could actually pull it off. Next slide, please. Now, why would we want to do all of this together? Why would we want to do refrigerant transition and energy efficiency together? Air conditioners and fridges are often the first products regulated for energy efficiency. When you go to one of those countries that was a blank spot on the map, typically they'll say, what do you want to regulate first? They'll raise their hand and they'll probably say air conditioners and fridges, because those are typically the ones that are widely deployed and are also consuming a lot of energy in the household. Also, the interesting thing is both refrigerant transition and energy efficiency require redesign of appliances and retooling of manufacturing lines. So combining this in some fashion would actually allow us to save costs for consumers and for manufacturers. So that's part of the reason why we included requirements for energy efficiency and refrigerant both in the model regulations. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit also about the actual requirements in the model regulations and our approach as to what we did. I don't have a ton of time, so I'm not going to go through the exact requirements, but I want to talk about the approach, which is that when we were looking at what levels of energy efficiency to set, we were trying to track all of the various markets in the world and the best available technology, and to try to understand what those trends might mean. And so what we did was we essentially set the level at a level where we think these large markets are going. We know, in fact, that these large markets are going in the future. For example, China and India. India adopted a unified product category in 2016, I believe, for fixed speed and variable speed air conditioners, which has led to the market shifting towards variable speed air conditioners. And that kind of approach is the one that we did also include in the U4 model regulations, where the test procedure is essentially based on ISO standard 16358, which essentially would allow a consumer to identify that variable speed air conditioners have higher energy savings. Now, we also looked at where the energy efficiency levels themselves, not just the test procedure, but where the levels were lining up. And we found that various markets were again moving towards variable speed air conditioners. So the level that we've set is roughly the level that we find in large markets like China in 2022. That's going to be the level that, it's already the level of the minimum standard for variable speed air conditioners, and it's going to be the level for all air conditioners in 2022. And so the reason for that is what you see in this chart here. So if you look at what actually happened in Japan, you'll see that they started to set a top runner target sometime in the late 90s. And the first time they did that, they looked at what the best available technology on the market was then, which is that gray dot that you see in the middle. And essentially, energy efficiency improved by about 67%, which is astounding. And essentially, the Japanese manufacturers, the market, responded by adopting that best available technology more widely and by bringing the costs of that deployment down. So if you look at the red line, you actually see that the costs, while the efficiency improved dramatically, the costs actually went down also dramatically. And so you'll see also a similar trend happen the second time they did that. So the second gray dot that you see on that black line was the second time that they revised the target based on the best available technology. And you see, again, the costs continue to go down. So part of this, the whole message here is by aligning the world with the best available technologies in the large markets, we're able to capture the scale that's possible, and therefore to capture the cost reduction that's possible from the larger scale. And so the approach that we've taken is to follow where these large markets are going, so we can capture the economies of scale and really take advantage of the innovation, look at where the best available technology is going, and try and make sure that the world follows that trend. So that's the approach we've taken in developing these model regulations. So next slide. Just to summarize, again, there's a reduction in both the direct refrigerant emissions and indirect emissions from energy consumption is essential to keep the global average temperature increase below 2 degrees Celsius. There's a large expected increase in demand for cooling driven by urbanization, electrification, and in particular in large emerging economies in hot, dry, and hot, humid climates. There's a significant opportunity to keep the cost low by coordinating energy efficiency improvement with the refrigerant transition. And ideally, we'd like to capture economies of scale, like I mentioned, through these harmonized requirements with large markets to keep the cost low. So the adoption of these U4A model regulations are an opportunity to mitigate the negative impacts of these increased cooling demands, such as greenhouse gas emissions, both direct and indirect, peak load, energy costs. And that's particularly important at this time with COVID, as Patrick mentioned, to put money back in the pockets of consumers. To keep costs low, of course, by coordinating efficiency improvement with the refrigerant transition to the extent possible. And then also, again, to keep costs low by trying to capture the economies of scale through harmonization with the trends in large markets. So with that, I'll hand it back over to our moderators, and thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Nihar. Very important points that you mentioned, specifically the opportunity to combine the energy efficiency requirements with the transition to refrigerants with lower global warming potential to keep the cost of implementation down. I also like that you mentioned the importance of using a technology neutral approach in regulations, and specifically this approach that is using the model MEPS. We know that it's very important to set a single set of requirements regardless of the technology, just so that you can drive the market towards that most efficient technology and limit the inefficient ones. I would like to invite our next panelist, Michael. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael from East African Center of Excellence for Renewable Energy and Efficiency, based in Kampala, Uganda. I'm talking generally about the policy and regulatory infrastructure for efficient cooling in sub-Saharan Africa. Next slide, please. We see a lot of things that is driving the need for cooling region. We see rapid urbanization and population growth, which again is linked to loss of forest cover. All these can provide natural cooling. When they are destroyed, you get more need for heating, and you have the people also getting richer, making in some areas, making them seeking for more comfort. And then of course the climate change, which is driving the temperatures up. Next slide, please. I just want to move a little bit faster. Yes, so if you look at this picture here showing us the space cooling demand in Africa, how it's increasing. This is a work from the International Energy Agency, Africa Energy Outlook 2019. It shows that in 2018, 700 million people in Africa needed cooling. Of course, not all these demands were met, or not all these needs were met. Only a small fraction of that demand was met. And if you project this to 2040, we see 1.2 billion people will need cooling by 2040. And the takeaway from that study is that without appropriate regulations on the type of equipment used for cooling, this would create a very strong increase in electricity demand. As we see in the next slide, how does this translate into electricity demand? Please, next slide. Now, this is a work which Patrick mentioned before, and I zoom into Africa. What is the situation in Africa? So this graph, this work done by U4E shows that if we take the business as usual scenario, then by 2030, the electricity consumption used for cooling is forecast to increase by over 60%. But if we look at application of the MEPS, then that we could save, we could reduce this to just increase of 3%. That is more stringent measures if we take. But if we take a middle line, then you see we can reduce still by 26%. So this really shows the importance of applying the regulations, the minimum energy performance standards. If you go to the next, we can see how this translate these numbers translate further into the number in terms of terawatt hours of electricity that is saved, the number of power stations, investment in power stations that we could that we can save, and the cutting down of the CO2 emissions that we can realize by applying this. And in terms of money, most people think about money. Yes, you can see also quite a lot of money, $4 billion US on electricity bills that could be saved by the household. So this really shows that there is value in applying the MEPS. Now let's move to the next slide, please. We see, yes, coming down to East Africa, where we operate. Yes, looking at this, 11 terawatt of electricity would be saved, which is equivalent to 5 power stations, each at 500 megawatts, 6 million tons of CO2. And so this is a very comprehensive work that is done by U4E to help us to see how we can save. But now, what can we do? How can we achieve all this? But I mean, before we do that, let's have a look at what are the effects of the growing demand for cooling in the next slide. Yes, so the cooling demand, as it grows, it means also that our problems are growing. To meet the cooling demands, we see the people resort to many in the African market, resorting to inefficient technologies because they're a bit cheaper. And then you see the dumping of old used products. If you look at that picture somewhere in the developed countries, these are dumped, and they take them and find where they can find markets. And so a lot of markets for these second-hand refrigerators and air conditioners in Africa and other developing countries. A number of countries still do not have MEPS. And in some countries, MEPS have been developed, but they are voluntary. They don't have the enforcing regulations, including Uganda, where I come from. We have voluntary MEPS in place. Many African countries still have to put in place and enforce regulations to control the importation of ACs and refrigerants or refrigerators that use HCFCs. But what is being done? Let's, in the next slide, we see some good steps in the positive direction. Since 1989, we have the Basel Convention on the Control of Transboundary Movements of Hazardous Waste and their disposal, which controls basically is broader, this has broader area of focus. And so it can control electronic waste, including electrical waste like refrigerators and air conditioners and things like computers, radios, phones, and so forth. But focusing on the refrigerators, this convention can control also the refrigerants. Cooling equipment. And it is good to note that all African countries, if I'm not mistaken, have ratified this convention, and it's enforced in all of them. But unfortunately, still we see these products coming. Another positive development came in 2012 when the EU came up with a directive aimed at curbing illegal dumping of used refrigerators and other electrical waste in developing countries. It entered into force. But still we see the importers are very shrewd. They can put this and say, these are my household effects. They can still find ways of smuggling these products into Africa, as long as they can find their way in. Now, some countries in sub-Saharan Africa, e.g. Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, etc., announced banning importation of second-hand ACs and refrigerators. Yes, but still we see this. So we have good positive steps, but the implementations have always been the problem. Then some countries in sub-Saharan Africa, e.g. Ghana and so forth, have MEPS on refrigerants and ACs, which is good. And I like the good example from Ghana, the last point there, introduced subsidies. Because, when we have these MEPS, the cost of the new products are still high. And therefore, we need some mechanism to encourage people to shift to efficient products. The carrot and the stick approach. The stick are the regulations, this banning, these are the stick, but then you need the carrot. So Ghana came up with the carrots, which is introducing subsidies to support purchasing of new efficient refrigerators and ACs, which is very good. Let's move to the next slide. In the next slide, you want to see what the role of IACRI and other sustainable energy centers. Now, we have several of these sustainable energy centers around the world, and I'm happy I saw in the list of participants, people who are participating now in attendance. We have CODA from Southern African Center for Renewable Energy and SADC Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, but we have others from ECRI, COWAS, Pacific Center, the regional center in North Africa and Middle East. We have the SEEDS. So all these, we have similar roles that we play. We have regional mandate to do policy and regulatory harmonization, advocating for that, building capacity, conducting research and development, investment promotion, and knowledge management. So when it comes to energy efficiency, yes, we do things to help, the regions that we work in, all the countries in the region, to try to ensure that no one is left behind when it comes to regulatory policy and regulatory environment to promote acceleration of market transformation for energy efficiency product. We do all these things to make sure that the countries that form these regional blocks are at par. Next slide, please. So focusing especially on energy efficiency, IACRI has been collaborating with the UN Environment U4E program. And under that collaboration, we implemented the Rwanda Cooling Initiative program. Under this program, the country adopted the U4E model regulations, and they domesticated, and this was approved. So Rwanda, they now have the MEPS for refrigerators and air conditioning, as well as national cooling strategy. And the program is currently now supporting the implementation of these regulations. We were involved in participated in the twinning workshop held in Paris in 2019 to see how we can learn from one another how to implement cooling, make cooling more efficient globally. Now, the collaboration with the U4E now has been extended because we know that Rwanda is part of the East African community, which is has a common market and customs union. So we have to harmonize policies and regulations if we are to control the movement of or the trade in inefficient product. So We now have a new program that has started called project called Building High-Level Support and National Capacities to Enhance Climate and Ozone Protection through Cooling Efficiency. The objective is to promote regional adoptions of adaptation of the model regulations in the EAC region as well as SADC region. Through the collaboration with the ELA project, and where the U4E is also working with the SACRI to develop and implement GCF projects in 8 SADC countries. So we look forward to seeing that these regulations are adapted in all the region, because we have, as I mentioned already, we have the common market for common market protocol in the East African region, and we have EAC, the East African Community, the COMESA, that is Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, and the Southern African Development Corporation. All these are also having discussions on how can we harmonize standards for trade in the 3 regional blocks. So this makes sense in having MEPS that are compatible across all these regions, moving from Egypt down to South Africa. So if we have harmonized standards, then we can be in a better place to control the quality of the products that are traded between the countries. Next slide, please. So in the next slide, we talk a little bit about the ELA project, and that should be my last slide. Yes, the Energy Efficient Lighting and Appliance ELA project is funded by CEDA through UNIDO and is executed by IACRI in collaboration with SACRI. We have CLASP, I always mix these 2 letters, last 2 letters, CLASP and Swedish Energy Agency as technical partners. And I'm happy to see, I saw Karin Rice is the project manager at UNIDO. She's in attendance in this program. Yeah, the objective is to create market transformation for energy efficient lighting and appliances in the 2 regions to stimulate their increased diffusion across all sectors, domestic, industrial, so that we have energy efficient products. So we go through policies and regulations. We've already drafted the MEPS for lighting, appliances, and now we are moving on, as already mentioned, together in the collaboration with U4E to develop MEPS for cooling appliances. In fact, we're having a meeting about this tomorrow. Then we do also want to build capacities for key stakeholders, including the testing institution, the laboratories. I saw someone from Cambodia asking the question about how do we strengthen, rightly pointing out that these laboratories are expensive. How could country accept testing from another territory? So this is one of the discussions that we are having under this project, to have, first of all, at least some minimum testing capacities in every country, but also strengthening some selected laboratories to serve the region, because it would be difficult to have every country in the region have state-of-the-art laboratory to handle all these things. So these discussions are going on under this project. Then, of course, the market incentives, working with the private sector, strengthening the private sector capacity to ensure that, they are encouraged, they see the benefits of energy efficiency, they see the market potentials available there, and strengthen their capacities. So both, and focusing mainly on the energy service companies, and of course, raising awareness. So I just want to underscore the importance of the regional centers, the sustainable regional centers, the regional sustainable energy centers, in bringing the countries together to a common platform to agree on common standards and work together to identify the problems and solve them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michael, for those important points. At the beginning of this dialogue, we wanted to discuss specifically the tools that we can use to address the climate impacts of growing cooling demand. And I think one of your slides really drove home the point. You show how implementing the model regulations in Africa can actually cut in half the growing demand from 60% to around 30%. So thank you for showing that as well. We're going to move on to the Q&A portion of the discussion. I would invite participants to submit their questions through the Q&A. So we will start with those. I believe someone had asked already what were the impacts of implementing the MEPS in Africa. And I think, Michael, you already addressed those in your questions. And in particular, the number of power stations that could be saved. I believe it's around 19. The third question, you already started to discuss about this, Mike, and it was the role that testing facilities can play in supporting implementation and in particular enforcement of these model MEPS. So I would like to open up and maybe Patrick and Michael, you will have some additional words in terms of the role of the testing facilities and how to specifically strengthen and build capacity in those.
Okay, yeah, it's an important topic, and as Michael said, on the testing laboratory side, it's not something that necessarily every country in a region needs to have. It's important. Testing is very important, but also sharing of testing laboratories is important because I think, as Michael said, the cost for that is also rather expensive, and it's beneficial to look within your region to identify existing laboratories that may be in place there, and also where your supply chain is coming from for these products. Maybe one other aspect to that is the development of mutual recognition agreements between countries, where it does recognize test reports from other countries that can be put into place. And in the Southeast Asia region, because I think the question came from Cambodia, there is progress for a mutual recognition agreement at the ASEAN level, but I think that's still in development. But that, of course, would be helpful for in that region and also other regions to have that in place. So countries, when they do have MEPS implemented, that they don't necessarily have to have a laboratory also in their country, that they can use a neighboring laboratory and rely on that rather than developing their own. Yeah, that's it for me. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Reviewing the questions from the participants. There's a question related to post-COVID. Are there any policy measures that can be looked at which will enable manufacturers to sell more energy efficient equipment and also entice consumers to buy higher star-rated equipment?
I can take that one. So there's discussions right now. I don't think any government has figured this out yet, but we're in discussions with different governments, including in China for that matter, looking at who were, I guess, hit first with COVID. And the point here is to look at the fact that not only if there's an incentive for the purchase of these equipment, that it serves as a stimulus to the economy. In two ways. It serves as a stimulus to the economy in terms of the initial spending, and it also serves, as Patrick mentioned, in terms of energy savings. And so people basically get that money back over time. So in both cases, the energy savings from higher efficiency would actually serve as an incentive as well as a stimulus measure. So I think in terms of the post-COVID recovery, energy efficiency needs to be looked at as a stimulus measure. And so thank you for the question. I think that's a particularly important topic for us to talk about.
Absolutely. Michael, there is a question for you about countries that have in place laws that prohibit imports of used refrigerators and air conditioners. They are mentioning that Ghana has enforced the law very aggressively with positive results. Are you aware of any other countries that are doing this and that have such a strong enforcement like Ghana?
Thank you. I like the example of Ghana. Ghana is, as he's saying, that is what Peyton. Yes, Ghana has done this very, very aggressively. It's a good example for all the countries. The list there is not comprehensive. I just said, for example, so there are other countries that have announced this. I couldn't write all. There are a lot of other countries that came up, but Ghana particularly went much further in the aggressive stopping of the importation. I'm not very sure of other countries that have followed the steps that Ghana has taken, and especially not only stopping, but also putting in place incentive mechanism to help people buy new equipment. Yeah, thank you.
Can I make just one point? Just so to add on to that, actually the model regulations have not just a minimum energy performance standard level, but there's actually 3 tiers in the model regulations. And the point there is that the higher efficiency level actually can also be used to set those incentive levels as well. And again, all of those are harmonized across all of the different economies. So essentially, if you set a level at the high efficiency or incentive level, again, there's another way to achieve those economies of scale for even higher efficiencies than the minimum.
Great, thanks, Nihar. So moving.
There is another question from this DRC here. Do you know if there is any program to help DRC establish and enforce MEPS for cooling? If not, what would be the steps to bring the program there? Well, I mean, the MEPS, the way it is designed, I mean, as Patrick elaborated, this document that has been reviewed by key experts, and there are documents that can easily be adapted. So at the country level, you don't need to go into a lot of expenses to get experts to develop for you MEPS. You have something that you can easily adapt to fit. So it's the push from the country then to, I mean, first of all, as I don't know whether you work for government or what, to really sensitize the importance of having the MEPS, and also convince that you already have a document, a model that has been reviewed by international experts. And what is required for the country to do is just adapting it to the local circumstances. So that, because I mean, it's just a few technical figures to be changed depending on the country's cooling needs. So it's not a very difficult thing. So if the country really wants to do, they can easily do that. And they, of course, you can DRS. You can approach probably through DRS is part of the SACRI of CUDA in the call here, or you can approach U4E to see how things can be done if you need technical assistance. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. I think the following question might be for you and for Patrick as well, and it's whether there are countries that have showed interest in implementing the model regulations. And I think I would like to ask Patrick, because I know he's been following closely, but Michael, it would be good as well to hear from you what happened in Rwanda. You mentioned that Rwanda has already adopted these model MEPS, so maybe you can expand a little bit about what is the time frame for adoption and what enabled specifically Rwanda to be an early adopter of these model MEPS.
Okay, yeah, I can start. Just on the opportunities for countries to engage, just to emphasize as well what Michael said, there's opportunities to engage at the regional level, and emphasizing for the question with the from DRC to engage within the process for the MEPS harmonization for air conditioners and refrigerators that's upcoming, following on the work that's being done on the lighting side. And there it's important to engage, obviously, because it's important that policies are implemented in a harmonized manner with the neighboring countries, and also to learn of the experiences of other countries that might have already developed some policies and MEPS to learn the process that they followed could be helpful for you. And then to add on, as far as opportunities to engage further for further implementation, through the project that I work on, U4E, there's we can support in connecting and you with different funding opportunities, such as with the GCF, with the Green Climate Fund, where there's an ongoing energy efficiency sectoral strategy, and that would allow your country to access some funding for development and implementation of MEPS and to provide some expertise for that. And we could support through that process. And maybe on the Rwanda side, just briefly, that was developed last year, and then it will go into force next year. And that was developed through the project, and a multi-year project with the support from the Kigali Cooling Efficiency Program. And as I think Michael referenced it, utilize the model regulations as one of the first countries to use the model regulations. So it provides a pathway for other countries as well. But I'd be happy to hear more from Michael since he was engaged in that project.
Yeah. Just to add, I mean, you said it all. What made Rwanda to do it in a very short time? Because the regulation, the model regulations were already in place, developed, and then they just adapted it. So it took them only 1 year to have the project done. But if you are starting such a project, when you're starting from the scratch, it takes years to have MEPS in place. So it was very fast for Rwanda to do so. I saw Kuda's hand was up. I think he lowered it. I wanted him to add something because we are from the CRIS, and I would be happy for him to supplement some of the things I've said. If you can give Kuda the floor, his hand is up.
Yes, he's coming in. Kuda, I think you are now a panelist. You have to unmute your microphone so that we can hear you.
Actually, it's Makaliki Ridley.
Ridley, yes. Ridley is the main guy in the project there. So Ridley, please.
Thank you. Michael and Patrick have already highlighted that under the ELA project, the next group of products we are going to look at are the refrigerators and the air conditioners. So DRC being part of the SADC member states, at regional level, the model regulations will be developed that can be adapted at country level. And the ELA project also supports efforts in the adaptation or adoption of these harmonized regulations at regional level, at country level, for all the types of products that we are looking at. In year one, Michael had highlighted that we are looking at lighting, which we have hoped to finalize by the end of last month, if it were not for COVID-19. But we are still pursuing this through remote contact with our technical committee members. And only last week, we had a meeting, SADC meeting, at which we wanted to come up with a common position, but being the first meeting, there were a lot of issues that were raised. So member states have been given all the comments that were raised by the other countries to go through, so that in the next 3 weeks, we can hope to finalize the MEPS on lighting. So this will be the same process for the MEPS for air conditioners and refrigerators. Yes, and DRC, we contact our national focal points through the ministries of energy, and they've appointed ELA focal points for our project. I can make available the name of the person from DRC who DRC can contact if the ELA focal person is not in this meeting.
Great, thank you, Kuda.
Thank you so much, Redley. So I think Anna Redley has supplemented heavily on what I should have said. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. So you have discussed about the value of a harmonized approach for regulations in the region. There is actually an interesting question about whether considering a harmonized approach for disposal of these products would be important. And I think probably this is more relevant for the disposal of the refrigerant that will be used in some of this equipment as well. So I would like to hear from the panelists if there's been discussions around this as well.
Yeah, I think I can take it up because I think I mentioned in my presentation why harmonization is very important because we have these trade protocols that are there. So as I said, in the East African, we have the Common Market Protocol, which allows free movement of goods and services across the borders. And that is also, so as I said, there is a bigger discussion which is going on. I think it got even stronger last year to have a common market from Egypt down to South Africa. So all that one market. I mean, to have free movement of goods and services between the countries there. So if you have a product which has MEPS in Uganda and the MEPS in Rwanda is different, and the MEPS in Tanzania is different, the MEPS in Malawi is different, then that will be a trade barrier. We'll have trade wars, I could say, between those countries. So having harmonized MEPS is very, very important when you're talking about these regional blocks. So that they have, so now when you look at the MEPS for the lighting and that we have developed, it's generally the same document drafted by CLASP, which is very good, and being reviewed by the countries. Now we have two blocks that we are dealing with at the moment. We have the East African Community and the Southern African Development Community, SADC. Now, these two communities have their own standard bodies. SADC stand in South Africa, and then the East African Standards Committee in the. So these committees already have mechanism for approval of regional standards because of the regional groupings that they're in, the regional common market that they're in. So to enhance trade, they already have standardization bodies, regional standardization bodies or committees that are responsible to have harmonized regional standards so that the countries should all have the same standards so that there is no other additional tariff barriers to trade, non-tariff barriers to trade, I mean. So now, because we are dealing in this project is dealing with the two regions, we are looking at having the same standards, but adapted by two different regions, East African Community and the SADC community. So that when the time comes when you have all this, having one common market, then we have standard, we have no issues with the standards again, the standards will be the same. So harmonization is very important if we are having cross-border trading, let me say in summary.
Great, thank you, Michael. We are at the top of the hour. There are several questions unanswered. In the past, we have tried to answer those questions in a follow-up email, so we'll try to do this as well. I know that we have received questions from various participants about the availability of the recording. This is recorded, and we will be sharing the recording with you following the meeting, and I will be coordinating with the speakers as well so that we can share the slides with all of you that participated, because I know that there is some interesting material as well. I'm conscious that we had scheduled this for an hour, so I don't want to go over, and I want to thank very much our panelists, Patrick, Nihar, and Michael, for their time and for joining us today, and for your fruitful thoughts and a productive discussion. And I think with that, we'll wrap up the event. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.